non-profit organization? Do you want to talk about your culture? Introducing the online web TV, Africa Today. Farnham. You can watch us live at the same time on 4 platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and using the Africa Today app. Download our app today for Android or Apple. Promote your business today. For more information, go to www.africtoday.com. Africa Today, the best of digital TV.
L'entrepreneuriat digital vous intéresse-t-il? Vous voulez apprendre à construire des projets digitaux? Aimeriez-vous gagner des revenus passifs conséquents en tout lieu? Voici la plateforme des professionnels du digital, la Diaspo Academy. Ici, vous retrouverez les meilleurs professionnels de la diasporama mondiale connectés sur notre plateforme. Vous allez pouvoir acquérir des formations adéquates qui feront de vous des entrepreneurs digitaux compétents. Étudiants, entrepreneurs, coachs, instructeurs et entreprises, Diaspo Academy est une opportunité pour vous. Elle vous offre la possibilité de suivre votre formation en mode virtuel à partir de chez vous, où que vous soyez sur la planète. Toutes nos formations disponibles en ligne sont dispensées de manière interactive. Il suffit de vous inscrire et vous pourrez les suivre depuis chez vous. Au cours de la formation, vous passerez des quiz et examens selon votre parcours. En outre, à partir de votre tableau de bord, vous suivrez vos performances et progressions. Vous pourrez aussi communiquer avec vos instructeurs et recevoir des notifications. À la fin de votre parcours de formation, vous recevrez un certificat Diaspo Academy Certified. Que vous soyez débutant ou responsable d'entreprise, Diaspo Academy est une opportunité pour vous. Saisissez-la. Enfin, que vous soyez coach ou instructeur, ayez accès à un millier d'étudiants à travers notre plateforme. Merci de choisir Diaspo Academy, le meilleur choix. Pour plus d'informations, allez sur www.diaspoacademy.com. Diaspo Academy, la plateforme des professionnels du digital.
Bailar conmigo, la libertad con todo, porque tu bienestar es lo que importa, mi amigo. Cantaré, mi vida es tu vida, si se puede, si se puede. Come on, let's do it together. Cantaré, mi vida es tu vida, si se puede.
Yeah. Look, we are the forgotten, like lost knowledge. More mileage, we bled for blood diamonds. Yeah, we bled often, sacrifice an offering. Life can get cold like you live in Boston. But if we come together, keep it running, then maybe one day we can make some progress, ayy. Maybe one day we make some progress. So before we roll the dice, better be cautious, ayy. Better be cautious. Now look at us, we flossing. I don't wanna see my brother in the coffin. We need less hate, more loving.
Cantaré, mi vida es tu vida, si se puede, si se puede. Come on, let's do it together. Cantaré, mi vida es tu vida, si se puede, si se puede. Come on, let's do it together.
América, ciudad de los valientes, Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Africa Today, a digital Pan-African TV based in the United States of America. It is my pleasure to host the first virtual live show of a three-part series, which we have entitled When Pandemics Collide. This show is sponsored by the Pacha Foundation, a charity based in the United States of America, and the Cameroonian Doctors Association, a charity registered in the United Kingdom, also known as cam.uk. Today we'll be discussing about the COVID-19 and domestic abuse. It is no news that the subject of abuse is a highly sensitive one and is still a taboo in most communities in general, but Black and African homes in particular. This reality in itself renders the subject of high interest, and as such, we will try to shed some light on what exactly is domestic abuse. We will address the health impact this can have on the victims and explore together the various supports that exist and which we can offer them. I am Dr. Vicky Kamwa, and I'm a clinical research fellow at the University of Birmingham in the United Kingdom. Je n'ai pas toujours été en Grande-Bretagne et j'ai fait mes études de médecine à l'Université des Montagnes à Baganté au Cameroun. Je suis également la trésorière de l'association caritative Cam.uk. Vous l'avez sûrement deviné, mais parce que nous avons aujourd'hui une audience bilingue, nous vous prions d'accepter que nous conduisons cette émission en français et en anglais. So, with me today are Barrister Mary Abanga and Dr. Nkwaya Mpafe, which I will have the utmost pleasure to present to you in the next minute. So to kick off, please let me introduce to you Miss Mary Abanga, who just loves to be called Mag. She likes to describe herself as a Jacqueline of several trades. She's an everyday woman and mother with a zigzag profile, so I'm going to give it a try. She's an activist, an author, a coach, a consultant, a feminist, a lawyer. She's a lecturer, a Prince to project manager, a psychotherapist, a philanthropist, and above all, she's a spiritualist. She just loves to sum it all by saying she's a person of passion and a tale of talents. Her life's journey has filled 7 books already, which I'm sure you will find of great interest should you decide. And she has got 3 musketeers to keep her busy at home. Mag lives in Douala, the economic capital of Cameroon. She is the founder and CEO of the association Hope for Abused and Battered, and also the country director of the Gabriel Bebom-Bechem Foundation for Epilepsy and Mental Well-being. She is the Global Mental Health Peer Executive representing Cameroon. So, with such a high, rich, and impressive profile, please welcome Barrister Mary Abanga. Mag?
Hello, everyone. It's such an honor to be here. When I was growing up, I didn't know I was going to come and have such a big profile and just keep going on, because I'm actually a Commonwealth scholar with the University of Lancaster doing an MNc in professional practice, healthcare. So you see, from law to psychology to all of it, passing through literature, everything, there's so much in my brain, and I love to share also. I'm also a motivational speaker. I do a lot of things. So I honor all invitations I can to talk, to put out some knowledge, and I'm so passionate about mental health. So looking at a topic like this one, I would, of course, focus on the mental health impact, and I'm so grateful to be on the panel with other luminaries like Dr. Perfect. Thank you.
And happy to have you on the show, Mag. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. So, right, our next panelist is as commendable and passionate as our first. He's a general practitioner who has worked for over 20 years in the National Health Service, also known as NHS. He's currently working for the Ministry of Defence in the United Kingdom, and he is based at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Birmingham at the Royal Centre of Defence Medicine. He has a special interest in underwater medicine and substance misuse. Please welcome with me Dr. Nkwaya Mpafe. Welcome, Doctor. Dr. Mpafe?
Thank you. Dr. Kwao, Vicky. I'm quite happy to participate in this pandemic because I consider domestic violence as a pandemic. And also, as you know, we're under a pandemic, which is COVID-19. That's why this subject came about. It is an important subject that needs to be debated. And we know that victims suffer in silence. Well, I will have some disclaimer to do. Whatever I say today is my opinion and not those of the Ministry of Defense nor the position of CAMDOC.
Well, thank you very much for accepting our invitation today, Dr. Mpafe. So without further ado, and if you don't mind, I would like to start by asking this to those beautiful panelists that we're having today. So we sometimes hear of gender-based violence and domestic abuse. Do they mean the same or are they different? And I would like to start with Mag.
Domestic abuse for me is the ensemble of all what can go on in a domestic setting, especially between intimate partners, that will lead to one being abused by the other. It could be the man abusing the woman or the woman abusing the man. Abuse in several forms. One of them can be violent, another one can be emotional, another one can be financial, spiritual, all kinds of abuse. Gender-based is, well, tilted towards focusing on the women, but as we will agree, I think Doc and I will agree, gender is the sex, male or female. So somewhere they collide, and I think, well, they can be used interchangeably.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that, Mag. And Dr. Nkwayeb, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I was going to say gender-based violence is directed against a person because of the person's gender. And as you know, the gender could be male or female. This violence that affects a person of particular gender disproportionately female, and I mean women and young girls. That's the reason that we talk about, we often associate gender-based violence with women and young girls. And also because on gender-based violence, you also have particular things that affect only women. For example, female genital mutilation, which in Cameroon, we usually call it female circumcision. That's the word that is used. So when we say female circumcision, it's actually female genital mutilation in Cameroon. Forced marriage, which could be due to the state or due to family, and breast ironing, which are specific for that female gender. That is the reason we always use, it's interchangeable, gender-based violence as violence against women and girls. As Mary said, the definition of abuse, domestic abuse, it could be one incident only, or a pattern of incident of controlling, coercive, threatening, degrading, and violent behavior. That could be physical, as Mary was saying, sexual, financial, psychological, or emotional, inflicted on a person or a child by an intimate partner, cohabiting partner, parent, siblings, and family relative, or someone well known to the family, or other person, or other important person as ex-partner or so on, or carers. When abuse, and this always happen in the house. So it's something that happens in our household. That's why we call it domestic abuse. As you could see, it's a big range of issues that we'll have to discuss. And as Mary was saying, it could be physical, emotional, financial, sexual, neglect, discrimination. And today we also talk about the online violence, which is actually quite prominent with the new technology and so on. Thank you.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Mpafe. I mean, that's very interesting what you're saying. And what I can take from, what you just said is it's important to notice that even children can be affected. So it's not only a matter of, women or men. So children are involved, because I was having a follow-up questions asking about how about children? Is that a separate context with separate definitions? But I'm quite happy that you made it clear that children actually can be, victims of these gender and these domestic abuse as well. So if you don't mind, so we know that this is COVID-19, scary times with lockdowns. How is this exacerbated during this pandemic? I mean, it means more time to spend at home. Do you think that this could be one of the reasons why domestic abuse is becoming that exacerbated during this pandemic? Or is there anything else that we need to, bring into light here? Shall I start with you, Mag, again, if you don't mind?
Okay, yeah, no, I don't mind. The pandemic has just made it worse for everybody. Everybody, I don't know, I have anxiety, so it has just spiked up. It's just going down now. The uncertainty that came with it, it's like, when is it going to end, right? We might be relaxing some, but in some countries, maybe in the US, I think the numbers are still going up. So the lockdown or the measures are still in place. So you are stuck in the house, maybe with a partner with whom you weren't even seeing eye to eye in the first place. Now there's no escape route. There's no distraction. What are you watching on TV? Updates about the pandemic, and that can also get you more worked up. So you can decide to stop watching TV and now start picking out on a lot of things you don't like about what's going on at home, for example. And then, well, your reaction just makes matters worse. You take it out on your partner or on your children. I think that the pandemic has made it worse. It has actually bred ground for more abuse. And that's why we are having this conversation, right?
Indeed, Meg. And Dr. Nkwayeb, are you thinking about any other reasons, that
I think Mary has said it all. If I could add and emphasize on just the fact that proximity and the fact that victims do not have escape routes because they were all in the house with their perpetrator of this domestic violence. When I'm saying it could be that the perpetrator could be male or female, I need to underline that. Though, as I mentioned before, the perpetrator are mostly men against women. As you notice, we've talked about various types of domestic abuses, which could be physical, because that's the one that we tend to see. But we don't tend to see the emotional and psychological ones. And also, due to the lockdown, if you think about it, people have lost their job, which means that financial strain actually impact on the family, in families, which makes exacerbate if there was an economic type of abuse, that would exacerbate it as well because of lack of money and so on. And as we mentioned, actually, the domestic abuse is a question of power and control. So if there's less money and you're controlling all the finances of that family, so you have more control. So actually, Mary said it all. It exacerbates a lot on those issues. Such as neglect, such as online type of abuses that happens, and also the physical violence that we see. There was I read recently about Belgium, whereby they said 2 feet, of female presently. That's the incrementation about violence during this COVID pandemic. I have to say, domestic abuse is a pandemic in itself. So we're having one pandemic exacerbating another pandemic. That's the way I will put it. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. And I'm quite happy that you mentioned the financial part of, and we will be discussing about that just for our audience. We will be having like a talk about how
Yeah.
COVID-19 and can impact on finances, the costs and everything. So, Dr. Pafe, you were saying that those victims, they're at their house and they cannot go out, so they're stuck in there with their perpetrator. But I do think that at some point, when it's not bearable anymore, when they are having, they've been beaten and all that, they at some point they have to attend to hospital. Alors, disons que vous recevez toutes ces victimes qui se présentent à l'hôpital pour une raison ou pour une autre. Comment arrivez-vous à détecter qu'un patient est victime de violences conjugales?
Well,
Dr. Pafe.
it's yes. It actually depends because the patient may come in with various type of symptoms. The physical one is the most obvious one that we see, isn't it? Because we could see that they've been battered. But sometimes if a partner behavior make you feel small, or make you feel that you're controlled, you're unable to speak or give your own side of the story when you have a dispute, or make you feel unease. And sometimes you could see when you're seeing a patient and then the husband is the one talking on behalf of the patient, whereas the patient is the one that is actually ill. Then you could understand the dynamic on that family. That could actually exacerbate, push you to say to the partner, oh, look, I would like to speak to my patient alone. I will not speak with both of you, and then I will call you later. Because that's the good thing about us medics, is that we could actually remove a partner from the consultation room. And at times, I will tell you, the victims take a long time to come out. And we have to, if we see some sign, prompt question to ask, how is it at home? And you have to give time, because one of the things that we don't have, to help a victim, you have to give time. It may take about an hour or 2 hours just to talk to them and say, why are you afraid? Why is it this? Why are you depressed? And to go through those things to get. So it's not an easy fix. In the UK, for example, people who come in accident and emergency have a direct question to ask, that we ask about domestic violence. Pregnant women, because when you're pregnant, you're really you become susceptible to incur violence from your partner, because that's when you're quite weak. So it's quite an important thing for us to actually look at, which I would ask most of healthcare professionals to see anybody with any injury to ask whether it was related to domestic violence. Because the more we ask the question and make it normal, more people will come out. When we don't talk about it, it takes about 3 to 4 years for the woman to come out. So most of the time, what we see is usually physical violence. The mental one and the financial one, we don't tend to see.
Okay, thank you very much for this brilliant, expose, Dr. Mpafe. And Mag, I know you also work with victims of domestic abuse, and let me remind to our audience, if you don't mind, that you are the founder and CEO of the Association Hope for the Abused and Battered. Is there anything that you would like, to add to what Dr. Mpafe just brilliantly laid down?
Yeah, well, from my experience, right, I just want to say that the victims reach out to us most often. A lot of the time, due to the awareness I do on social media and by word of mouth, so they know. And the physical you will not see, and I don't even wait to see any scars, because I have also been a victim myself. So I know that before it gets physical, there's been a long journey of other types of abuse. So I can see a woman and just know that she's going through something. I mean, I'm a woman myself. And I can also see a man and know that he's going through something. And men don't usually talk. They don't talk. They act. And before a man acts, he has also endured for a while. Women will cry and are more emotional. And so, when they cannot take it anymore, they are going to get emotional. And even if she doesn't say anything, you can see from her demeanor that she's going through something. So that's how we do in the association.
Okay, all right. Well, that's a brilliant job that you guys are doing, Mag, and I really to hear about what you've been going through yourself. So if I have to just, come together with everything that you just said. So we are talking about all those mental health disorder. Am I right if I summarize it by saying that you can have, on top of the physical, you can have mental, you can have, psychological problems? Is there anything else that aside from the physical and the psychological?
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say, though we've tried to define various types of abuse, usually when abuse occurs, you have several others as well linked with it, as Marie would know when she meets those patients. It could be when it's emotional or psychological. There could be a financial type of abuse going on it. There could be neglect on it. And there could also be discrimination, just on that one without having any physical effect, which means sometimes is the physical one is the one that we, as Marie, will concur that you see, because the black lips, broken teeth, black eyes, we see that, which makes it easy to detect. Whereas, as Marie pointed out, male will not talk. They will not disclose it. And what you would find out, they will have a lot of depression, anxiety, and something that we don't mention in our community, post-traumatic stress disorder. There are short-term effects on domestic abuse, and there's also long-term effect, which when we will discuss about the effect, I would come with some example that occurred to me last year. And you will see that the effects are dramatic when it comes to on the victims. But you also have to remember that the perpetrator, there's also effect on them. In our part of the world, perpetrator actually paid with the law. But in Cameroon, there's which Mary would actually concur, it appears that there's impunity because people are allowed to do most of the things. So I will leave it to Marie to continue on that.
Yeah, we will have the opportunity at the legal side of what domestic can lead to. So prenons maintenant une petite pause publicitaire et je vous retrouve juste après.
Okay.
Do you want to promote your business? Do you want to talk about your nonprofit organization? Do you want to talk about your culture? Introducing the online web TV, Africa Today. Fogham, where you can watch us live at the same time on 4 platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and using the Africa Today app. Download our app today for Android or Apple. Promote your business today. For more information, go to www.africtoday.com. Africa Today, the best of digital TV.
L'entrepreneuriat digital vous intéresse-t-il? Vous voulez apprendre à construire des projets digitaux? Aimeriez-vous gagner des revenus passifs conséquents en tout lieu? Voici la plateforme des professionnels du digital, la Diaspo Academy. Ici, vous retrouverez les meilleurs professionnels de la diasporama mondiale connectés sur notre plateforme. Vous allez pouvoir acquérir des formations adéquates qui feront de vous des entrepreneurs digitaux compétents. Étudiants, entrepreneurs, coachs, instructeurs et entreprises, Diaspo Academy est une opportunité pour vous. Elle vous offre la possibilité de suivre votre formation en mode virtuel à partir de chez vous, où que vous soyez sur la planète. Toutes nos formations disponibles en ligne sont dispensées de manière interactive. Il suffit de vous inscrire et vous pourrez les suivre depuis chez vous. Au cours de la formation, vous passerez des quiz et examens selon votre parcours. En outre, à partir de votre tableau de bord, vous suivrez vos performances et progressions. Vous pourrez aussi communiquer avec vos instructeurs et recevoir des notifications. À la fin de votre parcours de formation, vous recevrez un certificat Diaspo Academy Certified. Que vous soyez débutant ou responsable d'entreprise, Diaspo Academy est une opportunité pour vous. Saisissez-la. Enfin, que vous soyez coach ou instructeur, ayez accès à un millier d'étudiants à travers notre plateforme. Merci de choisir Diaspo Academy, le meilleur choix. Pour plus d'informations, allez sur www.diaspoacademy.com. Diaspo Academy, la plateforme des professionnels du digital.
Welcome back on Africa Today TV. For those of you who are joining us just now, I am Dr. Vicky Kamwe, and I'm here with Barrister Mary Abanga, that we love to call Mag, and Dr. Nkwaya Mpafe. Together, we're talking about COVID-19 and domestic violence. So before the break, you've both enlightened us on the definition of domestic abuse. We've talked about different types of abuse, and we mentioned that it doesn't only happen to adults, that children can also be affected. We discussed the impact it has on our mental health. So I would like to ask this question, is the reciprocal true? And what I mean by that is because we now know that domestic abuse can impact on our mental health, but can our mental health also have an effect on the domestic abuse? And if yes, what is that effect? Let's start with Mag.
Yeah, thank you. The World Health Organization defines mental health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. That means mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. So it affects how we feel, think, and act, or how we think, feel, and act. And it also helps determine how we handle stress, how we relate to others, and how we make choices. So now, if we already have some issues going on in our life, right? We have some challenges because of the normal wear and tear of life. Before COVID, we were already having, maybe people are sick, people are losing jobs. It's not just COVID that has made people to be sick and to be losing jobs and to be stressed up. So we could already have challenges. I personally live with post-traumatic stress disorder. So just imagine if COVID now came on, and I find myself stuck with a partner and we don't get along. That would just make my PTSD to just go over the radar. So yes, our mental health can affect domestic abuse, can actually favor domestic abuse. I could become more abusive because I become more restless, I become more anxious, I become more worried, more stressed out. Or the other person could also, because of the COVID and not being able to understand what I'm maybe going through in the first place, become more violent, more abusive. So I really think that our mental health can affect, can aggravate, yes, the effects of the pandemic on this first pandemic, which is domestic abuse.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that. And Dr. Mpafe, is there anything that you would like to add to what Mag just said?
I was going to bring another element into it. And the element is actually alcohol. Our population, which I would call substance misuse. Now, mental health and it's quite related. Some people, to try to cope, for example, with sleeping, do drink a lot of alcohol. And as you know, alcohol could then increase the incidence of domestic violence just by that fact. Or people could use heroin, shisha, or another type of drugs that people use, and marijuana and cannabis, which is cannabis, and so on. So, yes, the reverse is also true, that actually mental health could exacerbate domestic violence. People who are psychotic, for example, could actually be violent against their loved one around in the house. So, but it's the disease bringing that. But when most of the time they're treated, they then calm down, which means it's not actually because if you remember on my definition, I said it could be one incident or several incidents or with time. So with time, this particular one, which is a psychotic patient, we would say they were violent because of their disease, but it's actually a domestic violence type of thing. So I agree with Marie that it exacerbates the incidents, if you see what I mean. It just increases it a little bit. Though it's small, but it does happen. And I think it's usually related to substance misuse, which actually makes it worse.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Mpafe. And let me just remind the audience that you have a special interest in substance misuse as well. So you're well placed to know all that. So, and because we're live, I've just got a question coming in. And so we're having somebody from our audience asking, can the inherent stress of being born Black in countries like the United States of America or the United Kingdom, with the discrimination and all that is going on, can that be equated to some type of abuse? So can you elaborate on that?
Well, discrimination or racism, as we could put it, if you say we're talking about household, we're not talking about what happened in the community. We're talking about effect that happened in the household. Now, if, for example, I would take a very good example that could be considered, you know, Meghan got married to Harry, the Prince Harry. Now, can she undergo discrimination in that high class, which will be racism type? I would say, of course, yes. Because as you could see, because that's intermarriages between two races, which means she would have discrimination from the other family. So yes, it could happen, but the discrimination that happened outside of the household will not be considered as a domestic abuse. That will give different terminology for those type of effects. Whereas I took Meghan and Harry because that's a household, and the discrimination that Meghan could have would be from the family, which in that household. And I think that's one of the reasons they moved out from the UK to the United States. I'm not saying that's the really issue, but I'm just saying in that example, it's an example where I could say, yes, it does exist, which means when there is marriages between two races, then yes, it could exist, discrimination could exist in that household. Because the definition of abuse, of domestic abuse, if you see, it's something that happened in the house, not in the community.
This is where your
Yes, I'm sorry. The effects you could have effects on the community and the wider place, but that's not is the effect of the domestic abuse that we would see in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mpafe. Mag, do you think, what do you think about this member in the audience who is asking if being born Black in countries like the United States of America, I know you're in Cameroon, but if you probably listened, to all the news and everything. Do you think that Black people in the United States of America or in United Kingdom are actually suffering from some kind of discrimination just because they're Black?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I have been there, right? I spent 4 years out of Cameroon. So I am lucky. I'm happy that I came back to Cameroon because I didn't think I could survive in that system where I'm looked upon like less than just because of my skin color. And well, wanting to bring it to the house now, I want to say that even if you are married to your two Black people, the frustration you get from out there, let's say the man, might be different from the frustration the woman gets based on the color. And the man can bring it back to the house. And then, well, this is the pandemic time. Some people have still kept their jobs. And then the man goes, and everybody is so stressed out now. And then he is discriminated upon again. We know this guy was killed. I think it's George Floyd. Imagine the atmosphere at that time, and you come back home and you take it out on your partner because, well, you have to take it out on somebody. So I think that that discrimination can actually heighten a lot of other things, and that's how I want to look at it here.
Consider it as a type of abuse, though.
Can I add? You see,
Yes.
the way I would see the effect of the discrimination that happened on the street in America or in the UK is increases the level of stress. For example, then you could say because it increases the level of stress, then that will have an impact on the irritability of the person, which would also then link, if you see it's a link now to increase of the possibility of an incrementation of the domestic incidence of domestic violence. So that's the way I could link it. But there is no direct cause and effect on that being Black in America. It would just be, but incrementation of that stress level could actually have indirect impact on that. That's the way I would see it, and because I was listening to Mary and then got that could be in that sense. Yes.
Thank you for elaborating on that. All right, well, I'm sure it is starting to be clear that this is a serious social scourge that does a lot of damage. And just like we were mentioning, in the first part of our show, Dr. Mpathe, I do believe that domestic abuse, can lead to some serious financial cost. So would you care to please expand on this for us?
Well, I would have to bring the cost on the individual, cost on the household, cost on the community, and cost on the government. So if you see in various areas you have cost. Let me give you an example. Let's say I give Mami Lele, who has 3 children. And Mami Lele was bitten last night. And Mami Lele actually sell akra banana in the morning and then achu in the evening, which we all love. So Mami Lele was bitten in the evening and she was screaming. So the neighbor came in and she had a broken hand. The Mami Lele now is taken to the hospital with a taxi. That's what I would call direct tangible cost, because they have to pay for the taxi. And then when she got to the hospital, then she has to pay to see the doctor. That's direct, tangible cost to be treated. So, and now, if you look at it, if that happens, that I'm taking Mami Lele because Mami Lele is then situated in Bamenda in Mancon. That's what would happen. But if I take Mami Lele situated now here, the perpetrator will also have a cost. Because
sorry, Dr. Mpathe, Dr. Mpathe, and by here you mean in the United Kingdom, is it?
In the United Kingdom, yes. I'm sorry, I need to precise. Yes, here in the United Kingdom, because the police will be called out. It will not. The neighbor will not come to separate the fight. they will call the police. So the police would come to the family, and that's cost because they're using petrol, fuel, and that's the cost that the government has to put to pay for the police officer and so on. Now, there is also indirect tangible cost for Mamilele in Bamenda. The indirect tangible cost. Mamilele was not able to sell her Accra banana the next day. That's loss of income. Mamilele was not able to make her the achu soup that evening because she cannot pound the achu. That's tangible cost, but it's indirect cost because there's not exchange of money between her and others. But that's loss of income. That if we bring it back to the UK or to the US, that person will not go to work. That's how you have that indirect cost. Indirect tangible cost. There will be loss of productivity and so on. Now, I bring it back to the other aspect, the household. When Mamilele is not having money brought in, the household income, as we know, African women are the one that hold our family. And so it means that there will be no food. So you see that there will be no food the next day for the children to eat because there's less money in that household. Now, taking to the community, and Mary would say, you have in the community, you have social services that are paid by the government in the UK and I think in America. In Cameroon, we have charity organization. That's cost because those charity organizations have to pay for people to wait. And they also do all of these campaigns and so on. All those campaigns are cost. It costs. We could put money into them, which I will come back later. Now the justice system, which I would come, that's a cost for the individual perpetrator because they will go through the police. There could be jail if it's here in America. They could pay compensation and they could pay lawyers. So you could see that there's a lot of cost. Now, to throw something to you, because this is a really big topic, it costs £66 billion in the UK for domestic violence. That's how much it costs. In the US, it's 3 trillion in the US, due to the statistics. And when there's one incident in domestic violence in the UK, it costs it's about 24 million. I'm going to say this in CFA, 24 million CFA when there's one incident. That's how much it costs. So it's a lot of money. If you think 66 billion pounds, you have to multiply by 720 or 35 to get the money in CFA. So it's more than the budget of Cameroon for all our nation. That's the cost that we have. So there is something that we also call direct intangible cost. Now, the direct intangible cost is the cost, long-term cost on children that actually witness domestic violence, because that cost is actually go to on their education, because you will need special teacher to teach them, because the children may have a certain type of mentality at school that they will call challenging, so they will need special need. So that's a cost on education on that child. And then you have what we call indirect intangible cost. Now, this is what you would have. How do you cause a pain? You know, when Mamilele has a broken hand, she was suffering with pain, with severe pain. How do you cause that? How do you cause depression? How do you cause PTSD, like Mary when she had the PTSD? You cannot cost it, but actually all of those have money, because it would actually, when you have PTSD or whatsoever, it actually impact on your work, on what you could deliver. You would lose your work. Just to finish, I will give an example for Jean. I will call it Jean, a patient of mine 2 years ago, who came to see me. And actually, he saw me, and the symptoms that he presented with were PTSD symptoms. Well, we went through it, and then when we were questioning him, why did all this PTSD happen? Then it transpired that he was a nurse. The manager told him one word and it triggered his PTSD. What happened to this Jean was that 2 years prior to that event to see me, his wife has accused him of sexual abuse, of sexual assault. So he was held by the police, questioned by the police, and held for 3 days in prison. So the word that his manager used triggered all this memory back on him. Now, he was seeing me 2 years after the event. So it wasn't a direct thing. It was actually 2 years after. I could, just to summarize, he's not able to perform his nursing duty nowadays because he cannot work, because of the PTSD that is. And so we're trying to treat him, but he cannot function as a person. So if you see, that's a delay cost, which is very high. Luckily for in the UK, we have this social care that could actually take care of him. So they cannot remove him because, as I said, I work with the military. So he's a soldier in the first place. But if you see, it's not this PTSD is not because he went to a battlefield. No, it was because of what transpired. It was one incident that happened to his life that caused this PTSD. So I would discuss, I want to hear what Mary would say, because there are a lot of other issues that I would bring, because there was the legal cost that I said in summary, the work cost that I didn't actually talk about, which is actually the employer actually lose productivity and have to employ somebody to cover your job. So that's cost.
Okay. So and we're going to and just for the audience, I know Dr. Mpafe has been using PTSD a lot just to try to describe, and for the audience, it actually means post-stress disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder. So it's actually a condition that you suffer from after an event that is really very stressful, and that puts you just in a position where your mental health is very affected. So, and shall we, juste après ce spot publicitaire, nous parlerons un peu plus des financial costs, excusez-moi le terme, et puis nous parlerons des services mis à la disposition de ces victimes. Restez connectés.
Do you want to promote your business? Do you want to talk about your nonprofit organization? Do you want to talk about your culture? Introducing the online web TV, Africa Today, Fogham, where you can watch us live at the same time on 4 platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and using the Africa Today app. Download our app today for Android or Apple. Promote your business today. For more information, go to www.africtoday.com. Africa Today, the best of digital TV.
Nous sommes de retour dans ce studio pour la dernière partie de notre programme et vous êtes sur Africa Today TV. Je suis Dr. Vicky Kamoa et avec moi, barista Mary Ebanga et Dr. Kwaya Mpafe. Alors, docteur, vous nous parliez juste avant la publicité des coûts financiers que la violence domestique peut engendrer et causer sur l'état mental des malades. Alors, est-ce que vous voulez nous éclairer un peu plus?
I will try to speak in French, if that's okay.
That's right. I've been struggling too, as you can all.
Ce qui se passe, c'est que, comme je décrivais d'abord en anglais, c'est que il y a le fait économique, l'impact économique que la violence domestique peut faire est énorme. En Angleterre, on pense que ça coûte environ 66, how do you call, billion pounds, qui est un chiffre exorbitant. Une seule incidence en domestic violence, ça va porter à 30, je crois c'est 24 millions de francs CFA, qui est un chiffre exorbitant si nous pensons que si tu gifles ta femme, par exemple, ça va coûter 24 millions de francs CFA. C'est mieux d'avoir ces 24 millions et avoir une bonne vie. Ce que je voulais dire, que l'impact est sur les individus, dans leur maison et dans la communauté. Dans la communauté, il faudrait mettre les écoles, les services qui aident les victimes de ces violences. Il y a la justice, et je vais mettre ça sous le titre de la loi, et je crois que Marie va développer là beaucoup. Il y a les avocats qu'il faut payer, et si on te met en prison, il faut te nourrir en prison, il faut que tu payes la victime, leur donner une compensation. Tout ça, ce sont des coûts. Aux États-Unis, aux États-Unis, on a pu quantifier que quand il y a un meurtre dû aux violences domestiques, ça coûte presque 2 millions de dollars. Donc, et tout ça, c'est les coûts des individus, de la personne qui est morte, de la justice, de l'emprisonnement. Tout ça, ça coûte 2 millions, 2 millions, qui est beaucoup. Et je voudrais dire que le coût va aussi dans l'éducation, parce que les enfants qui voient leur mère ou leur père être battus en souffrent, et ils deviennent aussi des récalcitrants à l'école, ce qui veut dire que on doit avoir certains ici, on les envoie, on dit special need, on va les aider d'une manière pour pouvoir les contrôler. Et le travail, quand tu ne vas pas au travail, quelqu'un doit faire ton boulot, ça doit être tes collègues, ou bien on doit employer quelqu'un d'autre pour faire ton travail. C'est-à-dire le coût est un peu partout. Et il y a aussi les charités comme celle de Marie qui font les campagnes, et eux, ils dépensent de l'argent pour informer la société des effets de la violence domestique. Donc, il y a tout ça qui coûte de l'argent, et Marie fait ça avec son temps. Son temps-là est précieux, et son temps-là coûte de l'argent, même si elle ne met pas de l'argent là-dessus, puisque c'est une charité. Mais c'est de l'argent. Si tu dois quantifier tout cela, ce serait beaucoup. Au Cameroun, nous n'avons pas les statistiques pour pouvoir quantifier combien ça coûte un événement de violence domestique. Mais je veux vous assurer, ça coûte cher. Même ceux qui sont pauvres, ils payent beaucoup d'argent là-dessus. Et je passe maintenant la parole à Marie.
OK. Mag, quelque chose à rajouter à ce que Dr.
Yeah, I really want to appreciate the elaboration by Dr. Parfait, and I want to say that he has made me look at domestic violence from a completely different angle, and I wish people could listen to this and think about not even getting into an abusive relationship than getting in there and trying to get out. In Cameroon, as he said, there are no statistics, but people do spend money, and that is true. I'm just looking at myself, my organization. We spend, and what do? We have to keep spending as the cases increase, and we cannot understand why people abuse each other. And it would appear, yes, let me not say it would appear, something like the pandemic, it just favors, it becomes a breeding ground for people to become more abusive because they take out their frustrations and their desperation, their hopelessness on one another. And so if we stop to think about it, we would really say domestic abuse is not the solution to any misunderstanding. Thinking about the children, this is something we generally don't talk about because I grew up hearing that children should be seen and not heard. So if children are not heard, how do we even know what they are going through? Like, even you say children should be seen, so they are seeing all of what is going through. It must not be physical abuse, just the way you talk to each other. Children pick that up and think that is the way to talk to each other, to talk to people. And then they go to school and then they talk like that to people. And then, well, they are called into the disciplinary committee or something. That is really trickle down effect of that domestic violence that started at home. And of course, there will be the financial effect. The mental effect for me is just as alarming as the financial effect. And of course, that mental effect would actually cost much more expenditure now. So I think domestic abuse is something to be taken much more seriously than just COVID, you know? Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Meg. And on that note, actually, I just want to mention something. So, what is the role of the family support? Because in Cameroon, we know, especially in Africa, we know that abused women, sometimes they're sent back to their husbands, especially those who are married and they're in abusive relationship, and they're sent back to their husbands by their families because of the stigma and because of the stigma of the abuse, as well as the divorce, and people do not want to just get out of that. What do you think about that?
You know, I will use my personal experience. I love using my personal experience to make it more relatable. I didn't get the support I was hoping to get from my family, and I just took my own decision and I just left. And I left the country altogether, leaving my children behind. You can imagine the trauma on all the people involved. That is one case. There's another case where, as you said, the family will tell you to go back. The family will keep trying to arrange it, to keep trying to talk to you people, trying to fix it because, well, you know, people don't want to say, oh, my marriage broke down. So now I'll be looked at like a divorcee. And then how will my children grow up in a dysfunctional home or in a single parent home? That doesn't help because the cost is already there. Dr. Pape has broken it down perfectly. The abuse has already happened. The cost is already there. Even if you force the two people to stay together, the cost is already there. And then I think the abuse is just going to continue in one way or the other. So families should understand that at one point, if the person who is more of the victim than the other, because I will be honest with myself, domestic abuse is not only the person who is being beaten or the person who is being abused. Sometimes both partners abuse each other, even in the process of that abuse. The victim is just the one who has come out with much more both physical and psychological injury. Families should understand that you need to actually support the victim or the person who is coming out and saying, I can't take it no more. Because if you keep telling them, stay in there, you may come up with a corpse. In our community, people have killed their partners. You know, in Cameroon, the Cameroonian community in Ohio, a man killed the wife. It was even an ex-wife. She had left. But because they had dragged on for so long, we don't know what really happened. But he went back to their home and he shot her and committed suicide. The families are lost now. The children are left now. In Cameroon also, a guy killed the girlfriend because she went to him to say, I'm leaving. I don't want to be with you anymore. Maybe the family thought the best way to go about it is to go and talk to the guy, so there should be no problem. But who knows? Now somebody is gone. So I think that families really need to think about it and know that it is better not to even get people involved or get people into a situation where there will be domestic abuse or force people to stay there than to have corpses at the end.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Meg. And sorry again, about everything that you've been through. It takes a lot of courage to talk about your personal experience. We're being followed by a lot of people, so I'm just going to take maybe this question again. So many victims do not admit to being abused because of the stigma. How can domestic abuse be destigmatized?
Well, let me just say something, right? By talking and making it, normalizing the conversation, like Dr. Pape said, and using personal experiences like I use mine. I do it all the time, everywhere. I've been on several shows. I talk about it, and so families will know that well, domestic abuse has happened or it can happen, but life goes on. Dr. Papa was talking about this patient who lives with post-traumatic stress disorder and who is barely able to live a normal life. Well, I live with that same post-traumatic stress disorder, and I am able to, because I've been able to build myself up, and I can now tell people, look, domestic abuse can happen, but it doesn't put a stop on your life, right? So stop stigmatizing people who have even left. I think those are even the brave ones. Those are the warriors. Those are the ones to be celebrated, instead of making them feel like they're such a failure because they could not keep their marriages together. Because why did the abuse take place in the first place? That's what people should be looking at, not like you left.
Right.
I was just going to add about Mary eloquent answer to that question is that when we look at domestic abuse, awareness campaign should be there, which I think she's doing. Every time she comes and talk about herself, that's awareness campaign. Training. Everybody should be trained. We should train student from school and so on. That helps. The reason, just taking a step back, for example, and then everybody, if you ask, are you okay? Give a listening ear. Take the time to listen and don't accuse the person that is talking about domestic. Don't stigmatize it to them. Just listen and just sympathize with them. That could go a long way. In Cameroon, we don't tend to even listen to what the victim is saying. All we're just saying is actually a cultural and actually something embedded in Cameroon deeply. Because if I remember correctly, in the south and the east of the country, the woman will tell you if the husband does not beat her a little bit, it means he doesn't love her. That's the idea. But those type of things should come off our society. The government also is part of the problem. We have a lot of problems, but I think, Mary, you could correct me on that. When rape occur, for example, they usually ask the rapist if they get married to the person that is raped, then there is no issue anymore.
Yeah.
And if you see, that's actually what I would say, a government abuse on the population, on the women. And so personally, what I think is that we should, every individual should be able to have a listening ear, not to judge the victim, just to listen, and usually take time to listen to them. I have to say, the time the woman or the subject or the gender decide to leave, that's the time they are most vulnerable. The reason
it's very interesting what you're saying, but I'm really sorry. I'll have to, because on that note, I actually want to, because you're saying that those patients becomes more vulnerable. Can we talk about, all the services and all what is this, at their disposition in Cameroon and maybe in the United Kingdom, to take care of those patients?
That's where I was going to say.
Yes.
Vicky.
So I would like
I was going to say they're more vulnerable because when you talk to somebody, they need to make a plan.
Yes,
A plan
exactly.
how to live. They have to have a bag that is ready with very simple thing in it, always in the house, where they could just take it, tap, and leave. Because
Okay.
the woman, the individual that is subject to violence in the UK, we have social services, we have charitable organization, that you have numbers that you could call and they could talk to you over the phone. You could also have to the police. I think in Cameroon, la condition féminine, or Ministère de la Condition Féminine, as we call it, have put in every police station. I don't know whether that is true, but that's what the law says. In each police station, there should be a counselor there to counsel for domestic violence and abuses. I don't know whether that is the case.
Just,
However,
would you
but in
mind
the
just,
UK,
Dr. Mpafé, sorry, would you mind telling us about the management, the clinical management of those patients? Because I think it's only fair that we let the barrister discuss about the legal aspect of
now. As you remember, I did tell you in the beginning that we have various aspects. We will go to, let's talk about the physical. If it's physical, a broken teeth, you will go and see a dentist to try and fix your teeth up the way. Broken hand, you will go to the hospital. That's a simple thing. You have the mental part, which is actually the biggest in our community, with people with anxiety, people with depression, people with post-traumatic stress disorder, and people that actually lost their self-esteem. Sometimes they don't have the threshold to be an illness, but they lost their self-esteem. They cannot actually communicate. They don't go out anymore to meet friends. So those are impacts that are considered also that has to be treated. Counselors are usually the first port of entry. Your friends, usually friends that actually condone those type of effects are not friends. Your friends will actually help you to see things through, because sometimes people in love does not actually see properly because of their love. But what they have to do, their friend have to put the things how it is to them. And because sometimes when you're living, you're going, you don't know where you're going. So the mental health route, which people could say counselor, then they could see the psychiatrist. If you have PTSD, like my patient that I mentioned, Jean, before, he is under the psychiatric and is having what we call level 3 treatment, which is a high intensity of counseling and medication just to treat him because he's severely depressed with the post-traumatic stress disorder. And then you also have in the community, the government has put things, refuge, because on that refuge, you do have counselor into it. You do have people that actually listen, because sometimes what we don't see, to listen to the patient is actually treating them, to acknowledge that they're going through hard times, domestic abuse, because most of the time, people don't believe them, because usually the perpetrator are usually people high in the community that people know, and then they don't believe them. Just by believing the patient, sometimes it's a big relief that somebody actually has listened to them. So I would say counseling is quite important. Psychiatrists, hospital to where people could go, and also talk to friends.
Thank you. That's a brilliant summary of the clinical management of those patients. So, Mag, if at all those patients just stumble on somebody who only listen to them, what kind of things can be done, and what still needs to be done, and now that I'm allowing you to just expand on this, would you mind just telling us which kind of services are available in Cameroon to support them?
Thank you. I want to start first of all by giving some statistics so that we know how serious the the problem is in Cameroon, and then we can hear the services and then, evaluate for ourselves if those services are really something. I mean, I've heard about the services in the UK and I'm like, well, Cameroon, I don't know where we are right now, but okay, on a scale of 0 to 10, I don't know. Anyway, so statistics in Cameroon show that gender-based violence is really a cause for concern. These are statistics pulled from the Institut National de la Statistique, so the INS, and the 2012 study, that is the earliest I could find. They say lifetime physical and or sexual intimate partner violence is 51%. Physical and non-sexual intimate partner violence in the last 12 months was 33%. Lifetime non-partner sexual violence was 5%. So that is just to show that, I mean, more than 50%, you can imagine that it means that all marriages, half of them, there is abuse going on, yet people have to just stay in there, maybe because they don't know where to go to, or when they go to somewhere, nobody will believe them. I was having fun a few days ago sharing some statistics I was finding on social media, and one of them was actually a report that the ministry doctor talked about. They submitted to the UN Commission on something, and in one paragraph, they said that judges in Cameroon tend to consider domestic abuse as the husband exercising his disciplinary rights over his wife. So majority of the judges in Cameroon, especially in the higher courts, are male. And we know that Cameroon is a very patriarchal society. So who are you going to go and talk to about your situation? Look, when you go to the police station, I'm a lawyer, I've been there a few times with victims and stuff. What they do there is just tell you, no, this is a private matter, essayez d'arranger. Non, maître, non, c'est pas comme ça. Elle ne peut pas mettre son mari en prison. No. Or il ne peut pas mettre sa femme en prison. So it's like everything is try to fix it. Try to fix what? If people come to the police station, it means they're already fed up. It's not like out there people can just call 911 like that. Yeah, you don't call no 911, nobody is going to come. So for you to take your legs and go there, it means that you've had enough and you want some protection. Unfortunately, there's no protection. Now with the pandemic, the police are busy with other things. So don't even call them. Don't go there. Nobody is going to listen to you. I mean, even with rape victims, I called for one victim. I went there and it was like, il n'y a pas les ressources, s'il vous plaît, mettre à l'hôpital, pardon, laissez-nous tranquille. So even if we go to the hospital, what happens to the man? He's going to just go and abuse some other person, maybe his child, and stuff like that. So frankly speaking, on the legal point of view, judicial point of view in Cameroon, we still have a long way to go. That's what I'm going to say. Now, on the social point of view, the ministry, well, I saw a report that they don't have a domestic abuse shelter. One thing that will also help is if there is a shelter where you can live and go to, be you man or woman. Sometimes you just need to go to some place before you decide on what next. I left this country altogether. I will come back to myself. So it was not like I even went to my parents' home or to my mother's home. I just left the country altogether. I had worked on my plan. Some people don't even have time to work on a plan or have the means to put that plan into action. So what do? They have to go to a shelter, for example. They have to go to a safe space, maybe go back to their parents, maybe go in with a friend. But if you don't have that kind of friend, you don't have that kind of supportive family, you don't have a shelter anywhere. How many organizations have shelter? I don't have. I'm barely 2 years old. But there are some who have been there even for 15 years. They don't have a shelter. They are still looking for ways to, find some partners. It takes a lot of money, like Dr. Papa was saying. So that is something. Call helplines. I called one number. I saw the ministry said that was a help. I called since yesterday up to today. The number is not passing. But they said on the website, that's a number that's available 24/7. So finally, what do? I think that what is happening, especially now in Cameroon, is that we are just creating more violence because people are helpless. So what do? They take it out on the perpetrator. You hear a woman has stabbed the husband has killed the wife or the partner and stuff like that, because who is going to do what to who anyway? So find your own solution. And if it's taking out the other person that will now let you live in peace, then maybe that's what people are going to do.
And Dr. Mpafe, any number in the United Kingdom that victim can call?
Oh yes, I was just looking at it. There's a domestic abuse helpline run by Refuge on 0808 2000 247. So I'll repeat 0808 2000 247. So
And when they ring, does that mean that when they ring the number, they are taken care of?
When they ring the number, somebody's is 24 hours helpline, somebody's on the line, and they will answer. And as Mary was saying, those are things that does not exist in Cameroon. In France, I think the number is 3919. So they just dial at 3919 and they go to a helpline, and they will give them advice, because those people are trained on how to deal with victims of domestic violence. What we didn't touch today is that domestic violence, but I think Mary did touch on it. The perpetrator also have issues that have to be addressed. For example, what I didn't say before is that sometimes those domestic abuses occur because of substance misuse. So if you address the substance misuse, for example, alcoholism or drug misuse, then the domestic violence would actually ease. So at times, those people also need help, psychological help for others, for anger management and so on. And so it's not only that because they're violent, there's nothing there to be done. In the UK, there's things there to help the perpetrator as well. They also have their helpline where they could call people, and then they will help them to how to deal with situation and not to be violent with their family and so on. Right. I tried to find the number for Belgium. I didn't get, but the French one is 3919, and the UK one is 0808 2000 247, and it's free anytime.
And if you can allow me to just give the number for the United States of America, so you can phone 1-800-799-7233. And I repeat, that is 1-800-799-7233. Right. I mean, this has been a really interesting subject, and just like you can imagine, we can't just cover everything with one show. Like I said in the beginning, this is the first show of a series of 3 shows, so more to come, probably on different subjects, but obviously, you can drop anything that needs to be, if you have any queries, just share. If you've been interested, if you've learned a lot listening to this program, just share with a lot of people around it, and if you found it very informative. Right. Nous sommes arrivés à la fin de ce programme. Merci énormément de l'avoir suivi. Comme je le disais en anglais tout à l'heure, partagez le lien si vous l'avez trouvé intéressant et riche d'enseignements. Et nous vous retrouverons prochainement pour d'autres nouveaux shows aussi intéressants que celui-ci. Au revoir.
promote your business? Do you want to talk about your nonprofit organization? Do you want to talk about your culture? Introducing the online web TV, Africa Today. Fogham, where you can watch us live at the same time on 4 platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and using the Africa Today app. Download our app today for Android or Apple. Promote your business today. For more information, go to www.africtoday.com. Africa Today, the best of digital TV.
L'entrepreneuriat digital vous intéresse-t-il? Vous voulez apprendre à construire des projets digitaux? Aimeriez-vous gagner des revenus passifs conséquents en tout lieu? Voici la plateforme des professionnels du digital, la Diaspo Academy. Ici, vous retrouverez les meilleurs professionnels de la diasporama mondiale connectés sur notre plateforme. Vous allez pouvoir acquérir des formations adéquates qui feront de vous des entrepreneurs digitaux compétents. Étudiants, entrepreneurs, coachs, instructeurs et entreprises, Diaspo Academy est une opportunité pour vous. Elle vous offre la possibilité de suivre votre formation en mode virtuel à partir de chez vous, ou que vous soyez sur la planète. Toutes nos formations disponibles en ligne sont dispensées de manière interactive. Il suffit de vous inscrire et vous pourrez les suivre depuis chez vous. Au cours de la formation, vous passerez des quiz et examens selon votre parcours. En outre, à partir de votre tableau de bord, vous suivrez vos performances et progressions. Vous pourrez aussi communiquer avec vos instructeurs et recevoir des notifications. À la fin de votre parcours de formation, vous recevrez un certificat Diaspo Academy Certified. Que vous soyez débutant ou responsable d'entreprise, Diaspo Academy est une opportunité pour vous. Saisissez-la. Enfin, que vous soyez coach ou instructeur, ayez accès à un millier d'étudiants à travers notre plateforme. Merci de choisir Diaspo Academy, le meilleur choix. Pour plus d'informations, allez sur www.diaspoacademy.com. Diaspo Academy, la plateforme des professionnels du digital.
Another year has come and gone, and you're hoping for something better. It's your fault that you let a animal out of him, but he promised he'll be better. So you let down your guard. Is he good? Are you different? Forgive me, my sister. Forgive me, my brother. If I did you wrong, I promise I'll be good. I promise I'll be better. You see, better days are coming. Better days are coming. Better days are coming. Better days are coming. So be wise and be ready. Be wise, be ready. Dry your tears, you hide your face. I see you at a corner. It's nothing, that's what they say. You're better than that. You better than that. You better than that. You're better than what they say you are. They put you down, but you're rising strong. You're better than what they say you are. They drag you down, but you're rising strong. You're rising, you're rising, you're rising, you're rising. Better days are coming. Better days are coming. Better days are coming. Better days are coming. Yeah, 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 yeah. You say my body hot like a fire. Say make I put it down low. You say I'm the baddest. I'm your heart's desire. Put it on you. You like the way me put it on you, yeah. Put it on you. You like the way me put it on you, yeah. You like the way me do the dirty one. You like the way me put it on you. Me like the way me put this thing on you. You like the way me do the dirty one. You like the way me put it on you. Me like the way me put this thing on you. So baby, push it, don't stay, break it down to the floor, da 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 da. The way you put it on me, yeah. I swear to God, you did make it my back go low. Fais comme ça, 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 fais comme ça.
So why you gone now? Me done yo. We could turn together like a bundle. Boy, I get them, my boy them. See that roof coming down on the dance floor.
Get down, get down. Said I like the way you're getting on the place. Would you get down, get down? I like the way I'm walking. Say I swear to God, swear to God. I like the way I'm walking. Say I swear to God, swear to God. So if you come see my mama, I go show you the matter. And if you give it to me, I go give it to you. Say not ready by my baza. Say if you come see my mama, I go show you the matter. And if you give it to me, I go give it to you. Say not ready by my baza. Baby, push it, don't say, break it down to the floor, da 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 da. The way you put it on me, yeah. I swear to God, you did make it my back go low. Fais comme ça, 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 fais comme ça. Baby, push it, don't say, break it down to the floor, da 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 da. The way you put it on me, yeah. I swear to God, you did make it my back go low. Fais comme ça, 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 fais comme ça.
Said I like the way you're getting on the place. Would you get down, get down?
Tu es mon amour, mon bébé pour l'éternité, mignon garçon, mon trésor, j'aime te laisser. On fait comment? On fait comme ça, on fait comme ça. On fait comment? On fait comme ça, on fait comme ça. On fait comment? On fait comme ça, on fait comme ça. On fait comment? On fait comme ça, on fait comme ça. told you from the start, I don't need no commando. Now you acting like a child, hear them call you Bambino. I don't need no boy, man up your flaws, I'm not here to teach you. Trying too hard to prove you're the boss, you know who's in charge. Time's up, time's up, see they give me sober. Time's up, time's up, see they give me sober. Time's up, time's up, see they give me sober. Ooh, you can see they give me sober. I'm not trying to be smart, no one need to be macho. Now you acting like a fool, hear them say you like a show. I don't need no boy, mind up your flaws, I'm not here to teach you. You're trying too hard to prove you're the boss, you know who's in charge. I got no time, no wasting time for you. Let only know, you know who's in charge. See they give me sober. Oh, time's up, time's up. You can see they give me sober. Your time is up. See they give me sober. Oh, no, 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 no. See they give me sober. Your time. See they give me sober. You can see they give me sober. Pack on and go, go. See they give me sober. Go, 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 go. See they give me sober. I may have told you sometimes how I feel. Oh, what I feel, baby, don't make me weak. Oh, it's not personal, but you know I'm not sorry. So don't get it twisted, you know I'm in charge. You may have heard them saying that I'm bossy. You may not like it, but I know what I want. I want you to go, get out of my way. See they give me sober. They get me sober. See they give me sober. Oh, it is over right now. See they give me sober. Oh, no, 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 no. See they give me sober. Give me sober. See they give me sober. Over, over, over. See they give me sober. Pack and go, pack and go. See they give me sober. You give me sober.
Dad, I have a good news for you.
Wow, that's my son. I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, I just finished recording my album and I'm so excited. This is the CD.
What? Stop it. I brought you to America to study and become a medical doctor, and all you want to do is music? I wish your mom was alive to see this. Take this thing and get out of my house, right?
I thought it was a good...
David, take this thing and get out of my house.
My life is not my own. To you I belong. You are my everything, Alpha Omega. My life is not my own. To you I belong. You are my everything, Alpha Omega. Jehovah, King of Kings. Jehovah, King of Kings. Jehovah, King of Kings. Jehovah, King of Kings. I will love you, I will love you, I will